she would compare something just looking at pictures. No, the very wealthy, they could afford the books. And now we didn't have presidents or prime ministers or governors back then, but who did we have ruling over us? Oh, definitely not a rabbi. No. They didn't want to see those folks back then. No, it would have been kings and queens. No, they put the rabbis. You go back to your ghetto and stay out of trouble. No, it actually would be the kings and the queens, the royalty. It was an R word. It was royalty, not rabbinate. The royalty, the kings, the queens, the princes, the princess. They could afford the books. And one last group. And our friends in the church.
Priests?
Yeah, actually the people, well, the clergy, the church, actually the people above them would be like the bishop, the archbishop, the cardinals, the pope. They owned the books. Books were so rare, that they actually had, these three groups were only 5% of the population of Europe. Why books were so rare, they had to chain the Bible in a church on Sunday so people wouldn't steal it during Mass. You had 5 books in your house? That was a large library. I'm sure you have more than 5 books in your bedroom at home, right? Yeah, you say, we need 5 books. Well, you know what, you say 5 books. Yeah, people who come from miles around to admire your big collection of 5 books. Now you're saying, what do you mean 5 books? Now what would happen if you owned 5 Lamborghinis? Wouldn't people come from miles around to admire your expensive car collection? You must be someone very important to own that many cars. Well, it was the same thing with books. But all of this, and the thing is that, as I said, only 5% of the population owned books. The rest of us, the other 95%, were poor, ignorant, illiterate peasants. And proud of that fact because we didn't have books, we didn't have knowledge, and therefore we didn't have power. But this is all going to begin to change about 550 to 600 years ago when a German jewel maker and goldsmith by the name of Johann Gutenberg comes along. He's going to invent something called Mein schnelle Pressenfabrik, my faster writing machine. Leave it to a German inventor to come up with a nice exact technical name like that. Actually, here Gutenberg wanted to come up with something called artificial or mechanical writing. And this is his great contribution right here. Movable metal type. See that? Obviously it is it's a backwards capital O, right? Now what happens when I turn it around? It's now backwards and upside down. See the difference? Sort of? No? Well, that's because it takes years of trained professional eyes to see that. But, by the way, Gutenberg was not the first to come up with even movable type. Actually, the Koreans and Japanese did that at least 100 or 200 years earlier. But they used either wood blocks, which wear down easily, or clay blocks that break. Not so with metal. This is going to last you a long, long time. Now, how do we get this little piece here? Well, here Gutenberg is working in his shop, and he takes a piece of metal and a file and spends all day filing it down. By the end of the day, he will have filed a letter. Now, at this rate, it's probably going to take you a month or more to make an entire set of letters. Well, Gutenberg wants to reproduce these. He wants to copy these. So what he'll do is he'll place this metal into a fire, which of course heats it up, and put it into water, which cools it down. That whole process, that entire process, hardens the metal, which means you can then take a piece of softer metal like this, maybe brass or copper, put the hard metal on top of the soft metal, bang away at it, and you get this. See that? A P from an O. I haven't figured it out yet. I've been here 5 years. I haven't figured it out yet. But you see what the P has created? Like a little mold. We call this a map or a matrix. You know, like the movie? You saw that? Yeah, it was boring. Well, my stepson liked it. My wife and I didn't care. All right, but the matrix. It's called the matter of the matrix. And notice it looks like a mold, like a cookie Jello mold. Obviously, we're not going to pour dough or gelatin into it. We're going to pour something else onto it. Hot liquid metal. Now, you just can't pour it on like that. That's wasteful and dangerous. We want to mold it into a nice, small shape. Now, in order to do that, Herr Gutenberg takes these two interlocking pieces of metal, called a mold. The wood acts as an insulator. I put them together like that. It snaps on there like that. And notice right there, there's a big hole. That hole has the same name as the holes in our teeth, which are called cavities. And like the cavities, it gets filled with metal, not soft metal like a dentist uses, but hot liquid metal. And the question is, the kind of hot liquid metal are we going to use? Is it one that's going to melt at a very high temperature or a very low temperature? Anybody want to take a guess which one and why?
High temperature.
Why high?
Because it needs to heat up to get
Okay, good guess. Well, actually, a good low temperature of only 550 degrees Fahrenheit. Which I know doesn't sound very low to you and me, which is our stoves on high. But think about it. A wood fire, which is what they would be using back then, burns up, or gets up to a high of 1,100 degrees Fahrenheit. While you do it at half that temperature, what are you doing? You're saving yourself half the time, half the costs, and half the materials. So Gutenberg, who was a jewel maker and goldsmith by trade, he understood the properties of metals. So he's looking around for a metal that can melt at a low temperature and one that will harden at a low temperature. So he's experimenting and he comes up with an alloy. An alloy, of course, you know, is a mixture of
Two or more metals.
correct. It's a mixture of metals. Right, you know, things like gold and silver, lead, those are pure metals. Things like brass, steel, those are alloys. So he's experimenting and he comes up with an alloy of three metals: lead, tin, and something called antimony. Now, why lead and tin? Lead melts quickly, maybe 450, 500 degrees. Tin, maybe about the same temperature. Antimony creates a balance and it causes it to expand inside the mold right here. And it turns out I actually have a sample of some of that right here that I'd like to share with you. Oh, yes. Very hot.
Oh my goodness.
Looks like silver or mercury.
So beautiful, yes. It's a liquid metal.
Exactly right.
Oh my
That's right, Art.
You can't already. Gosh.
God.
Look at this. Watch out. Hot. See that?
Very good.
I said hard, it's so pretty.
Well, it's the properties of the metal cause it to do that. Yeah, look at that.
When you put it back in there, it melts back?
Exactly right. That's exactly what I'm going to do.
Yeah. Let's see. Look at that, you guys. Isn't that amazing? Look how fast it melts. Wow. You always want to do that, Paul. You see, look, he's putting it in there, inside there. To make the letter out.
And there we are. Look at that.
This is very interesting.
Well, it takes a few minutes to cool down.
Feel